Okay, good afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. Item number 1, conflict of interest declaration. Any members today have any conflicts of interest? Or Councillor Simpson?
I have a conflict and I'll recuse myself for 12.1.
Okay, thank you. Is there any additions to today's agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay, then we have a public hearing on land use, rezoning land use bylaw 773-P-01-020. I'll call the public hearing open and ask administration to open. I just want to remind anybody that wants to address the public hearing that there is a clipboard to sign in, and then when it comes to that phase of the public hearing, then I'll ask people to identify themselves, saying their name and address when they are going to speak to the public hearing. We got the agenda done. Yep. Okay. All right, Spencer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to you and Council. I have a brief presentation from administration on Bylaw 773-P-01-20. That is for the public hearing on the property legally known as Plan 1611387, Block 3, Lot 8, with the civic address of 3102 12th Street.
Go ahead.
Shall I continue, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Okay. So the subject property, as described with the opening of the hearing, is located in the west portion of the Seasons neighborhood, known as the Seasons by Area Structure Plan, with two specific neighborhoods included: the Seasons Manufactured Home Community and Fieldstone Meadows on the west side of the area contained in yellow, which is the boundaries of the Area Structure Plan area. And again, just for information's sake, imagery from the town's GIS and Google Earth showing the same neighborhood, zooming in specifically on what is known as Fieldstone Meadows. And on the left image, the dark blue square is the subject property. The purpose of this afternoon's public hearing is for the rezoning of the property in question. The applicant wishes to have the property rezoned from CR1 to R1A to construct and operate a micro seniors home. In terms of proposed use, again, that would be micro seniors home. That would be listed in the land use bylaw as an institutional facility or use and would be classified specifically as a residential care facility. Just a quick note on process, if I may. There are generally two ways that a rezoning application is initiated. One of those ways would be by the town, and the second way would be by a property owner or applicant on that property owner's behalf. In this particular instance, the owner has applied to have the property rezoned for a specific reason or a specific use, that being the micro seniors home. Once an owner or applicant applies for rezoning, the town's role is to facilitate a standardized process as per the MGA and our land use bylaw. Just a few specifics on what that process looks like. The standard process for an application such as this would be, of course, receipt of the application, preparation of a staff report and draft bylaw requesting first reading. And just quickly, first reading must be granted for proposed bylaws as per section 32.6 of Council's procedural bylaw. And that is typically to give life to the bylaw in order that a public hearing can be scheduled and the bylaw can be circulated and discussed in the public realm. The third step would be circulation and advertising. So according to section 606 of the MGA, when a date and time for a public hearing for a rezoning bylaw is advertised, it must be advertised in one of three ways. That is to be published in a locally circulating paper at least twice consecutively prior to the hearing, mailed or delivered to residences in the area of the zoning, or advertised by a method identified in a municipal advertising bylaw. The town advertises in the first two ways, so circulating in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing and by mailing the notification to surrounding residents. The rezoning and the development of the site, or any site, require 2 separate processes. In this particular instance, the rezoning is as described in the previous slides. In this case, the proposed rezoning again is CR1 to R1A, and the rezoning is decided upon by council as the decision-making body. For proposed developments, that is the actual construction and operation of some type of structure or building, an application for that type of use is by development permit. That is outside of council's purview unless it's a direct control zoning. So we will be discussing both elements today in this hearing, and that's just a point of note. When we look at rezonings, we typically do look at the list of uses that would be permitted and discretionary in the current and proposed zoning. So everything gets discussed at once. However, the only portion of this that council has the decision-making authority over is the rezoning itself. The development permit would be dealt with separately. So if we look specifically at what's going on with the change from CR1 to R1A, we would start with the list of uses. So the red boxes represent the permitted discretionary uses for CR1 on the left and R1A zonings on the right. And I know that's a little bit difficult to see, so we do have a slightly clearer version of that. Ultimately, what we look at when we have rezonings is what is lost in the current zoning if the proposed rezoning is successful, and what's gained by rezoning to that new zoning that's been proposed. In this particular case, CR1 allows everything you see on the screen. If we switch to R1A, we would be allowed to have semi-detached dwellings, pre-planned, of which there are none in this neighborhood. Pre-planned means it would have to be a part of a larger plan, such as an area structure plan. In this particular part of the Seasons area structure plan, there was no multi-unit dwellings proposed at the time of the ASP, so that would not be something that would be entertained in this particular instance. However, going to an R1A zoning on this particular lot would allow for a discretionary use, semi-detached isolated dwelling, a boarding or lodging house, or institutional facilities and uses, and parks and playgrounds. And the reason these are in green is that they're what currently wouldn't exist in the CR1 zoning if the property were to be rezoned to R1A. The next piece that we look at with rezonings is setbacks. So the rear yard setback with CR1 and R1A is the same at 25 feet or 7.62 meters. The setbacks for front, secondary front, and side yard are more generous in the CR1 zoning. Or sorry, less generous, being that you have to be further set back from those property boundaries. So in R1A, we go from 40 feet in the front yard to 25. For secondary fronts, we go from 40 to 12.5, and for side yards, we go from 15 to 5. Now again, this particular drawing represents potential approval outside of the rezoning process, but just for conceptual purposes, the applicant has provided this and other imagery of the specific product that they would like to develop on the property. And just as a point of note, the way it's laid out currently, the secondary front yard would be 20 feet 6 inches. The front yard would be 33 feet 1 inch. The side yard would be 19 feet 8 inches, and the rear yard would be 25 feet in terms of setbacks from property lines. And again, just some conceptual imagery that have been included in the application. So as the last point of note for my portion of the public hearing, the rezoning also needs to be considered in the context of the Seasons Area Structure Plan and how it may or may not align with that. The ASP identifies residential development should be the only form of development considered in that particular area. And in the land use bylaw's definition of residential care facility as a specific use within the broader category of institutional facilities and uses, It's noted that residential character of the development shall be a primary expectation. So based on the definition or intent of the proposed use and the listing of it in the R1A district, this could be considered to fit within the context of residential development. With a use listed in a residential district such as R1A, in order to maintain the residential character of the area, the onus is really on the applicant to ensure two things from a character and an operational perspective. The proposed development from a character perspective, that being the grounds and the building, would need to be designed in such a way that it complements and maintains the surrounding character or the character of the surrounding area. And secondly, on the operational side, the proposed development would need to be proven to be able to be operated in such a way as to not negatively impact the residential character of the surrounding area, with particular focus on land use matters such as parking, noise, and other forms of nuisance. Again, just as a point of order, it's worth noting that visual and operational matters are typically considerations at the development permit stage and would be decided upon by the Municipal Planning Commission. Ultimately, with residential character being a relatively subject matter in both a visual and operational context, this is typically where perspectives may diverge and a debate is likely to occur, which is a part of what makes these proceedings necessary. In terms of advertising and notification, as per standard process, as mentioned previously in my presentation, notice of the hearing was advertised in the Sunny South on January 28th and February 4th, and notice of the public hearing was mailed to the properties highlighted in the image on the following slide. So that would include all of the properties within Fieldstone Meadows and the 4 properties to the west of 13th Street. In this instance, given that Fieldstone is a well-defined and planned community, although we don't have any set minimum for circulating this type of information, because Fieldstone Meadows is a planned neighborhood, the logic was used to circulate to the neighborhood in question. And just as a point of note, typically for the sake of clarity, a proponent or opponent who submits written or verbal commentary on a given proposal, this one included, would be expected to indicate how they believe they're likely to be affected by the proposal if it were to be approved. As of the date of the preparation of the staff report, which was prior to today, 4 letters of opposition were received. I believe there was 1 additional letter that was provided to council by way of email after that, and 6 individuals had indicated they wished to speak at the hearing. Again, as a point of note, anybody wishing to speak today who has not contacted the town prior to today is still welcome to speak, of course. So with that, the options that council may wish to consider once the public hearing is closed would be to pass bylaw 773 for second and third reading with or without amendments, to table the bylaw for further information, or to defeat the bylaw. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions council may have.
Are there any questions through the administration, through the chair? Councilor Avery?
Your presentation, you talked about parking in the neighborhood. What about traffic along 30th? Again, we've got a concern. There's one road in, one road out to that whole development. We do have in our budget this year to upgrade 8th Street, which wasn't supposed to be part of the town's responsibility, but we need to do that. And so in the event of something happening on 30th, how are we going to get people in, people out? Like, it's really concerning that we're going to allow more people and no way for access.
Right. So, as mentioned, sorry, just take a second to get here. So, we note here that considerations would be focused on land use matters such as parking, noise, and other forms of nuisance. Parking could be broadened out to include potential traffic impacts as well.
Any further questions through to administration? Councilor Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a question regarding R1A. Does it have any requirements as far as sidewalks?
Through the chair to Councillor Lloyd, that is typically in the context of a larger plan. So an area structure plan would detail whether it's sidewalks on one or both sides of the street. Typically these days it's best practice to have sidewalks on both sides of a street in an R1A district. However, given that this is a spot zoning in the sense that all of the other zonings around this property would be different, and the expectation for that cross-section was more of a rural cross-section when the development was approved initially. It would be difficult to require or install a sidewalk at this point unless it were going to be tied into a broader active modes network.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time I'll call upon the applicant or the proponent to address council.
No problem.
Douglas, if you can introduce everybody just for the record, please.
Your Worship, members of council, my name is Douglas Bergen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a brief presentation here today. I'm accompanied by Tracy Shear. Tracy Shear has 26 years of experience in the healthcare industry, many of which are with seniors, and she is a partner in this proposal, should it go ahead. Rod Nell is with my office. He is a graduate architect, and of course you know who I am. I'll give you a brief history of where we've come to get to where we are today, and then we'll go through some of the details and elaborate a little bit more on what Spencer talked about. About a year ago, I was approached by Craig's Homes. They are a supplier of manufactured homes for Coaldale, and they were looking to construct a factory-built home for Ms. Shear to house seniors, and her proposal was to go into the Seasons development. She did some homework on that and felt that she was encouraged that way, being that she had met with the town, but apparently there was some miscommunication there or misunderstanding, and so I just let the process carry on as it was until one day her and I finally met, because the negotiations were through Marg at Craig's Homes. And we talked about the details of her proposal, and having a lot of experience in the construction and design of seniors' homes, I realized that her application or her proposal for the Seasons likely wouldn't work. She would need a much, much larger plot of land to build a seniors' home that would accommodate 12 people. So her and I got to be talking more, and sketches went back and forth, and we determined that we would probably need about a half acre of land to accommodate what she was looking to do. So we considered several sites in the town of Coaldale. We looked at an acreage on 18th Avenue, which was great for size, but would be prohibitive for servicing. We looked at buying potentially 3 houses that were on their last of their design life and demolishing those and servicing the lot for this, but it proved to be much too expensive. And so we came up with the idea that perhaps Fieldstone would be an appropriate location for such a use. We met with several healthcare professionals. We met with the Director of Seniors Care for the South Region to go through our proposal. We met with experts in mobility. We met with the CAO of Green Acres Foundation, and ultimately concluded that what we were doing was reasonable for housing seniors. This particular facility that Tracy wants to run would be an SL3 level of care. So there's 4 levels of care, SL1, 2, 3, and 4. There's also a 4D, which is for dementia patients. And so the SL3, these people are largely mobile. our facility is fully designed for handicap access, but they're likely not in a wheelchair, although they might be. What we want to make clear today, and I appreciate all the debate that's gone on so far and what will take place in this room, is that both I, as a landowner in this town and as a developer, and certainly as a designer, that we're here to build community. We don't wish to tangle with our neighbors, given the extensive experience that I have in land development, having created over 300 lots in this town, and been involved in many seniors' homes. I feel I've got the expertise to at least shed some light on our proposal that is positive. But I do know that there are concerns, and that's what we're here today to hopefully address. Whether we satisfy them or not is time will tell. There's certainly a need for this type of housing in our town. I think we can all agree on that. That hit pretty close to home recently with me when I was looking for a bed for my own father, and found that there was a waiting list at Sunny South Lodge that he could not get in, and that there wasn't going to be, well, they couldn't give me any timeline on when that might happen. It's also apparent, given our proximity to Lethbridge, that we're not going to get a large provider to come to Coaldale to build a 100-bed facility and try and fill it up. We're just too close to the city. And so the idea that Tracy had to build something small, to be able to pick up that wait list from Green Acres Foundation at Sunny South, I thought had a lot of wisdom. But that she only wants to go to a level 3 of care, and so when they go beyond a level 3 of care, then they go to Sunny South or to another facility, and so we won't be a high level of care in this facility. As Spencer mentioned, we've gone beyond the call of duty with the depth of our proposal. I've been to a lot of public hearings, and if you go in and just make application for rezoning without having this level of detail, it ultimately results in a whole bunch of questions. And so that's why we've gone to great lengths with our site planning and our building exterior facade, so that we could fairly give the public an idea of where we're going to end up. So we believe that we can fairly stand behind the proposal that we're making with the experience we have, the expertise that Tracy has in the industry, and the professionals that we've consulted on this specific location. Okay, so Rod, now you can run me to the next one. You just tap right there. So that image is the one that Spencer had up on the screen as well. And so the finishes on this building would meet the requirements of Fieldstone Meadows as it relates to the finished product. So the roof is asphalt shingles. The siding would be a hardy plank siding with smart trim around the windows. The gables would be clad with hardy shingles, and then the bridge work in the gables would be that of smartboard as well, and have a painted finish. The pillars would be brick with the capitals that are on them there. The property would be landscaped as shown, and there would be no fences on the public side. Next one. This is the same site plan that Spencer showed, with the exception of the fact that I think it's important to illustrate which lots are currently either occupied by a home or sold. So all the lots that show sold have houses on them, with the exception of this lot here is a vacant lot. The house is designed, but it's not constructed. And this lot here, it's staked out for a dig, but they haven't dug yet. And so the subject land that we're talking about is right here. So should we be granted the opportunity to develop this, once the rest of the homes in this neighborhood are built, for those that are living there now, they physically couldn't see this from their home, although certainly this home would, the owners of this home would pass it on their way out, but most would likely go the other way In other words, they wouldn't really interact with this corner property when they're coming and going from their current home. Okay, you can go to the next one. Setbacks, I think, are really, really important because certainly they were brought up in some of the letters that were submitted. And though, as Spencer mentioned, the setbacks are reduced from that of a CR1, we don't wish to impact certainly the immediate neighbors in a negative way. So this is what is considered our rear yard. So the rear yard on a CR1 is required to be 25 feet, and we are honoring that. So our setback here is 25 feet. The side yard on a CR1 is required to be 15 feet. So this is the side yard. This is our side yard here, and it would be immediately neighboring a potential house build to the south. And so our setback here is 25 feet. To the patio, it is 20'6", and to this wall here, it's 29'6". So we're far, far beyond the 15 feet that is allowed on that side. Our front yard, which would be this yard here facing 12th, would be 33'1", and then this side yard here would be 20'1". And of course, that's from the property line to the building itself. There's considerable space between the actual paved surface and the building. We are proposing 3 parking stalls out front here. So 2 of them are accessible stalls for handicap. So visitors coming and going through what would be our proper front entrance, which is facing east to keep it out of the wind, would come in that way. This would be for our staff member and family that comes to visit would come through potentially a back door once they're familiar with the facility. And generally these people do not drive, so we're not proposing parking for the individuals that live there because they generally do not drive. Next image. This is the floor plan. Again, this is to a high level of detail that probably isn't overly important today, but just to take you quickly through. So this is the east entrance here. We've got a vestibule. You come in. Tracy would have her office here so she could greet people coming in. There is a meeting room here for, say, birthday parties or staff training. This is the kitchen, dining, living area. We've designed it very, very much like a house. When I've worked on seniors' homes that have 80 to 100 people in it, the kitchen is sequestered. It is a commercial kitchen where they cook and then deliver food out. Here, we want the residents to be able to be a part of the cooking experience if they so want. And so it is open to the kitchen, dining, living area in order to, so that the aroma of cooking and those kinds of things flow throughout the space. The individual rooms are very, very similar to what you would get at Sunny South Lodge. They're a tad different shape to allow for furniture to be better placed. And of course, everyone has their own washroom, and there is storage in the basement for folks that are moving in and don't want to part with all of their possessions. Then we're allowing for some storage in the basement. This is their backyard area, so they'll be able to have a garden back there, have a pathway to meander through, and be able to look after the landscaping if they want, get involved in looking after their own yard as a form of exercise if they so desire. Next one. This is an image we created just to give a sense of scale. So many are concerned that this development would overpower the site or somehow be large, because when you think of a senior's home, you do think of something that is much larger than this. I don't know of another facility that's this small in southern Alberta. And so it is a bungalow, so it's a single-story building. It is not two-story, and it would be set back from the street as shown. So what we've done on that same site is put on a large 2-story house with an accessory building that would be permitted within the bylaw. We're showing an RV, family, 3 kids, vehicles, whatever. So we tried to be fair. We didn't put something ugly up there. I think it's a nice looking French country home. That's a 6-foot fence that could be built in its side yard. So I think that the impact of the bungalow that we're proposing, given its setbacks, to that of a built-out lot that is meeting the criteria of Fieldstone Meadows, would be acceptable in its scale, is what we're trying to show with this, that is not overpowering to the site, and that likely the buildings beside it will be taller than it is. Mr. Mayor, I realize, and Council, that there will be questions arising from the presentations of those that are present, and so I will conclude my presentation at this juncture to allow for, well, it's not my meeting, but that they can be heard, and then I can address those coming back to the table.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the applicant or proponent by members of council? Councilor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Mr. Bergen, for your presentation here. And I guess my only real question will be towards the development of Fieldstone in and of itself. And if you could just share with us who the demographics are for that neighborhood. Are they primarily in their 40s, 50s, or could you give me some description as to what the fit is for that community?
Certainly. So they're largely present here, and I won't guess their ages, but we have the house that's just staked out now. That's a young family, so they have 2 daughters, and I'm going to guess they're preschool, or maybe the older one would be in kindergarten. So they're very young. There are 2 households with teenagers, 3 households with teenagers, and then the remainder would be empty nesters, most of which have grandchildren that visit. I developed both Station Grounds and the Seasons here in Coaldale, and I've been asked on a number of occasions to make a +50 development within, so that there wouldn't be any kids around, and that's been requested of me of other developments. Philosophically, I am completely against that form of segregation. I believe that a society needs to be living from the cradle to the grave, and so I am opposed to creating developments that are geared toward a certain demographic. And so I would say the Seasons would be primarily retirees. And certainly this proposal came up at our annual meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the discussion was very positive, some of which saying it would be great if we could age in place and just move outside of the Seasons and live in something like this. So it was well received, but most of the hair in that room would have been gray for sure. So thank you.
Mr. Bergen? Councilor Holm?
One really quick one. What's the total square footage of this building facility, whatever? We're looking at 3,500 square feet, or?
You're supposed to know this, Rod, now.
I got the other senior. You want mine? 865.
Pardon me?
865 square foot.
No, that is the elevation above
The
sea
elevation.
level. You know, sir, it says on these documents, but it is too blurry to read. So, oh. So the building is 782 square meters, which is 8,400 square feet.
Councillor Lloyd?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Can I ask you what the square footage per unit is, please?
Yes. And again, don't quote me, it's around the 300 mark.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you. Douglas?
Thank you.
So we did have a information package and a number of letters were provided in the council package by residents writing in on this matter. So we've seen a number of the letters. At this time, I'll invite members of the public that want to speak to this matter. They can come to the delegation table. If you could clearly, if you haven't already signed in, please make sure you sign in. But if you've already signed in, please tell your name and address and identify whether you're speaking for or against a proposal. And if you want to speak verbally today. Yeah, if you haven't already done so. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to present in order of how you signed in. So, okay, so we have one brave soul first. All right.
Somebody got to be first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity to come here and speak to the council. I am Tony Boss. Me and my wife just moved into town last week, Thursday.
And your address, Tony?
The 1217 33rd Avenue.
You're welcome. And we have a letter that was presented as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So, I would like to, bring a few more points to your attention, besides the one which were presented in the letter. The first one is about the timing. I heard about this rezoning request from a neighbor on January the 28th. It's the first time I heard about it. Then I contacted the town office. I talked to Cindy and she sent me the notice of the hearing. 2 days later, I received the hearing in the mail. So that was on January the 30th. I then informed the town on Monday the 3rd that I would like to be present and talk about the bylaw, and also I would like to submit a letter, which I did. So I ended up dropping the letter off on Friday morning, 9 o'clock. But yeah, in conclusion, on this timeline, we did not have much time to respond. So while the application was an agenda item on the January 13 meeting, I believe, it took 17 days for me to get a letter in the mail. I had only 2 business days to respond before February the 3rd, before 4:30. So I received my letter on Thursday. I did get an email on Tuesday, but by mail I only had 2 business days to respond. Then another note is there was 2. So we were supposed to get a letter. There was also supposed to be an ad in the local newspaper. The first one was January the 28th. The second one was on February the 4th. One day after the day you had to have your name on the list, and I know it is open now, but it is misleading information. On the letter it said you had to have your name on the list by February the 3rd. And if you read it in the paper the next day, you say, well, whatever, I'm too late. I'll miss the boat, right? I don't think that's proper. I'm living 3 days in town and I'm sitting here addressing a council I've never done in my life. I was actually excited moving into town. I'm a little bit discouraged by it, yeah, how this process went. But mistakes happen, I'll forgive, you know, but I don't think it was handled properly. So another thing I was never contacted by Mr. Bergen until Friday. I think usually when you go for a bylaw change, you approach the neighbors and you talk to them or inform them what you're trying to do. He did phone me at 12 o'clock. I missed the call. He left a voicemail. I thought it's useless phoning back now because we're only one day away from being here. I thought it's a little bit late. He said he left a voicemail a week earlier. I have no record on my phone. I have nothing. I have no voicemail. I have no record of him calling me. So I'm not sure what happened. But I think that should have been done too. Like he should have contacted us personally and talked to us before he went forward with his proposal. Also think the pictures are very misleading. Like I know the conceptual drawings and they look nice, but in reality there is a 1 meter ditch there around the property, right? And no sidewalks. This is country living in town, and that's why I moved here. It really appealed to me. But I think this development doesn't fit on this site. And so, what else was there? Yeah, basically, because of all those reasons, I think the rezoning shouldn't be approved. And that's not why we moved into town. We moved into town to have this country residential living, and now we're getting care facility there. And I'm not against care facility. We need them. My mom lived in one in town here. But I don't think this is the right place for a care facility, and that's not why we invested. And if you get one property rezoned, what's going to be the next, you know? I think actually you can sterilize the area. It's going to be tough to sell more lots, so we're going to see more rezoning here and more of those facilities. So I'm a little worried about it. Like we invested quite a bit of money, built a nice house and nice lots, and then we're getting this happening in our neighborhood. That was not advertised, in my opinion. So that's all I want to bring to your attention. If any questions or.
Mr. Boss, is there any questions of Mr. Boss? And your comments with regard to timing are noted, and we'll explore that, the timing of the notification and that a little bit more, as you've noted out, to make sure our processes are either in place or improved upon.
Or delay the meeting or something, or it's not right, I think, to get noted like a couple of days before the meeting. I'm sorry, but it's too late. Yeah.
My name is Art Lancer. Tony pretty much pointed out everything exactly the same situation as us. We weren't notified or anything like that. And yeah, like, you know, the picture looks beautiful. But like Tony said too, it doesn't show a ditch in there. I myself have quite a bit of experience with, my mother was in a wheelchair. I took care of her till I was 18 years of age. These streets, these deep ditches, that's, like you couldn't even let go of her for a minute and she would be in the ditch. So, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I think Tony pretty much covered most of all of my concerns, and we definitely need to be notified as a community what is going on. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Mr. Lasser, if you could just give your address. So we
I'm
got
3001 13th Street.
3001 13th Street. Thank you very much. Is there any questions for Mr. Lasser? Okay, thank you.
And then if any of you know where I live, Douglas's plan is to build a house exactly twice the size of mine. So It'd be a pretty large building, so I don't know where you'd park vehicles, so, but he has that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak?
If you sign in and
Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay, the
you're-
roads,
oh,
my
yeah.
name's Dave Gale. I live in the Seasons, and I don't trust Mr. Bergen.
Well,
That's okay,
okay,
that's
we're
between
not-
him and me.
we're not here to make
no,
character.
okay.
We're speaking to the
Our
land use.
roads are not good enough for handicapped people. I don't care what you do. You've gotta have, besides ditches, you've gotta have a sidewalk and fairly wide roads. I wouldn't wanna walk down 17th Street. Would you wanna walk down 17th Street? I don't think so, you know. There's too many people out there driving that shouldn't be driving. But I know I've got a scooter and I'd be afraid to take my scooter down that road. Or any of those other side roads, they're just too narrow. And that, so, but, yeah, I'm not in favor of that place whatsoever.
Okay, Mr. Gale, what's your unit number?
Dave Gale.
Yeah.
I live at 2006 Applewood Road.
Okay.
I live in the Seasons.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been there.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just a reminder, this is just a proper discord of information, and please refrain from any character assassinations or any civil kind of comments like that. I know people can get a little wound up at a public hearing and that, but this is just an exchange of information and that, so.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Pitcher. I live at 3004 13th Street. My husband gives his regrets for not being able to be here, but with a hearing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he was not able to get off work. Our neighbors, the Murrays, directly north of us, also wanted to send their regards and said that they echoed my sentiments. I, like everybody here, I believe, has concerns with the facility of this matter in a neighborhood like this. I can appreciate that we do have a need for another seniors complex in Coaldale, as the demand is greater than the beds that we have. I think this should be explored, but the proposed spot is just not the place for it, I feel. I work at PharmaSave here in town, and I have the opportunity of interacting with many of the residents that live at the Sunny South Lodge. When the weather's nice, they enjoy walking uptown to do their own errands. With this proposed location, it's almost 2 kilometers to downtown, which is too far, and the roads are not such that they can make it there. Another challenge of this location is that this neighborhood is country residential, as you know. It is not designed for a high-density residential complex. It was built without sidewalks and with deep ditches. This is a huge drawback, I feel, for this seniors facility. The residents will have access throughout their own property until they step on the roads. There's not even a safe place for them to walk around the block. It seems the motive for rezoning this has less to do with the need and more to do, less to do with the proper fit and more to do with just developing something for the sake of filling it. Otherwise, why not build it on something that's already zoned as such, like over by the proposed location for the new high school? I took the liberty, if I may submit a picture to you. You can take one and pass it around. So I took this picture these pictures over the last week, just so that you can see what pedestrians face in our neighborhood. With more homes moving into the Seasons and into the neighborhood, the traffic is getting busier. And even as I tried to get a picture of someone walking down the street, there were many vehicles on a Sunday afternoon. As the residents are older, they may not be able to move out of the way quickly, and they may not be able to hear vehicles approaching from behind them. Parking is another concern. It is said that many of them won't drive, and they don't need that many places to park, but they will need staff to clean, staff to do yard work, staff to do cooking. To me, that seems like more than one staff member. And the facility will will also have visitors. The streets get very crowded when you don't have sidewalks. I've driven by the Sunny South Lodge several times and I realize it's bigger, but there's usually at least 13 vehicles there, often 18 or 20 or more. Having cars parked along the road only makes it more dangerous for the seniors to walk, and also for the kids who like to ride their bikes and visit their friends and play in the neighborhood. This winter, we have seen many cars get stuck in front of our house with the snow. We even had one car that had their bumper actually ripped off as they tried to plow through the deep snow. This, once again, is an issue for seniors and their accessibility, and even for services like the paramedics to get in and out, as there's only one road in and one road out. A facility of this nature would be better suited in a neighborhood that has sidewalks, where the residents could enjoy walking safely, and a neighborhood that's closer to downtown. Please note the pictures. This is what it really looks like. Let's put this in a place that is better designed for it. Please vote no for the bylaw. We are opposed to it. The future residents will thank you for it, instead of coming in to complain that they're in fear for their life every time they go outside. The other question that I have, that I don't know if there's an answer to, but if this is rezoned to an R1, is it possible to say we don't want to put a seniors complex and put some other type of multi-dwelling on that property? Once it's rezoned, you can do anything with it. And that's all I have to say.
If I may, my name is John D. Hawes. I'm one of the empty nesters
Okay.
at 3125 12th Street. I moved here about 4 years ago, and I lived in the Fraser Valley, and I wanted to get away from the rat race, so I have a lot of family here too. So, and this subdivision was just available, so we looked at it, and we happened to find a nice half-acre lot in the back corner there, because I liked elbow room. I was also giving a list of guidelines as to I had to follow to build my house, which I had no problem with, because being in construction all my life, I ran into the same thing in the Fraser Valley, which gives us as homeowners protection that no junk would be built in there. So I appreciate, Mr. Bergen for putting these up. Although even though I looked at these guidelines, a lot of times it still stayed at the bottom, it was still up to the discretion of the developer. So it's almost like he can change the rules, to fit his, whatever he wanted, which always gave me a bit of an uneasy feeling. But so far, it's been fairly good. I enjoy living there. But then when this came about, I thought, uh-oh. And we've seen, the size of the property, which is almost twice the size as a regular home. I've heard a lot of the arguments about the traffic, and I've noticed ever since they put the gate on the far side of the Four Seasons, everybody comes through our subdivision. And that's quite a bit of traffic that comes through. And what's going to happen when Four Seasons expands, which is eventually, I guess, will. That's just going to increase the traffic. So, and my other main concern is, if council allows this rezoning, how can you stop any other rezoning on any of the other properties? Next thing you know, across the road, there's 3 half-acre lots there. There's going to be 3 of these homes being built. And then what's it going to look like? And here too, I have no problem with these type of facilities. I think they're needed. But commercial property is put in certain areas, industrial areas put in certain areas, and I think these type of care homes should also be in areas where the safety is #1 priority. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
I just had to come up here because my wife told me I had to.
Okay.
Jason Thompson, 3121 13th Street. I'm opposed to this rezoning just for the sole reason of this is not what we bought into. The resident in the resident area is described as country living. I don't know if it's since changed. However, on the website, that's what it was designed as. The lots are large, the houses are very nice, and they all keep their value. if you're putting this size of a house in, 8,000 square feet as a bungalow, I think that's a very large footprint. With regards to parking, I feel that that is not near enough parking spaces. I have had to deal with several people in my profession that shouldn't be driving. However, when you reach a certain age, you don't like to give things up. And I think there's more parking spots that are required. And to simply say that once they reach a certain age that they don't drive, I don't think that's very accurate. And just simply say, well, they can park on the side of the road, I think there's more traffic issues with regards to that. Because that is a single way in and out of the seasons. With regards to snowplow, today was actually the first day I've ever seen a snowplow go down our road. So there are no sidewalks. The ditches are 4 to 5 feet in depth. To say that there's not a lot of traffic going around, that is inaccurate because there are mailboxes adjacent to this property. So people will be driving up to the mailboxes. Just with the overall, it's just not a good fit. It's the area is secluded for seniors. There's nowhere for them to go. There are the quads further down the road. However, there's no sidewalks for them to get there. Yeah, I don't think that this would be a proper fit for that area. And you're stating that it's only a certain level of senior that are going to be taken care of, like a level 3, I believe it was. So I don't know which way the scale goes, but if they switch from a level 3 to a level 4, I mean, no one is imagining that you would just kick them out. But if there are so few places to go, where would they go? So I think they might be staying longer than required, and I just don't think the patient to staff ratio is sufficient enough for 12 if they do slide that up that scale. So those are my main concerns. So thanks for your time.
Okay. Are there any questions to the presenter? None? Okay. Thank you very much.
My name is Debbie Erdos, and I live at 3008 13th Street. And I am, myself and Kathy, we are the senior residents of the neighborhood. We have lived there for 15 years. We have been through this process so many times, I can't even believe we're here again debating more changes to this area structure plan, to this area that is deemed a country residential. We have been there for a reason, as everybody else has stated. Country residential, the openness. We've been told it's a low-density area. We've been told this so many times, and here we are again looking for another change. This area is zoned country residential. People have bought here and paid prime dollars for their lots, prime dollars for their homes, paying prime dollars for taxes. This should not be considered in this environment. It is totally inappropriate. No sidewalks, the roads are narrow, you have somebody parked on the street, you're afraid to walk down the street with your dog, afraid that somebody could be hitting you. And we have some individuals who decide they need to drive fast in our area. We do have a racetrack out there. In the summertime, motorbikes, we've seen it all. It is so unsafe to put individuals of seniors age, sorry, I'm a little worked up, in this environment. I don't even feel safe myself walking down the road. I would not want my mother to be in this environment. There are many other places in town that are zoned for this type of building. Across from Baker School, 21st Avenue, there was apartment buildings there not long ago that have burnt down and have been destroyed. I do believe this is a multi-residential zoning area. It's close to the community center, close to the curling rink, close to Sunny South where they could access activities if that's where they're ultimately going, close to doctors, close to the hospitals, sidewalks, parks across the street for the grandchildren to go play at, much, much more suited for this type of establishment. What I really am asking is for you council members to respect the area structure plan, respect what has been decided upon in the past, respect those individuals who have chosen to live there, who've invested time, money, their lives to this country residential area. Have respect for us. Have respect for the seniors that you're wanting to serve and give them the appropriate environment to be living in. Number one, respect the people that are going to be living there. You rezone one piece of property for this, next one's going to be what? I don't know. My husband and I own 3 acres there. We have 2.5 that are empty. We could very easily come in here and ask to build a townhome environment, have many people living there, but we would never do that because that environment is for country residential, for large pieces of property to be enjoyed by people, not to make money on building a townhome environment. That is not what that area is for. Please respect the decisions that you and your people before have made to leave it country residential. I too have questions about staffing. I just buried my mother a week ago from living in an environment of a senior's environment. You need good staff. You need many staff. You cannot have just one person in that building at a time. You need to really look at what this environment is for. In respect to notification, I'm sure I read beginning of January town newsletter about a micro seniors unit. So you guys have been talking about this for a while, but nothing was conveyed to us. I know I saw that in there about a possibility of micro seniors unit. So if it's in the town newsletter, why are you not communicating with us far longer before than this? Very disappointed. Very disappointed.
Any questions? None? Anybody else care to address this matter?
My name is Gemma, and we live in the Seasons. And I wish you all good luck. That's all I can say, and I am against that because what will happen to this if it doesn't work out? Will we end up with a halfway house in the neighborhood? Or what will it turn to? Is this government funded, or what is it? Are the people gonna come there? They're gonna be picked by the town council, by Mr. Bergen, or whatever. Those are all questions that are very important to know the answer before. Like with living in the Seasons, I know that things change a lot. So good luck, everybody. I'm on your side, and I am against that.
So that was Gemma Gale, and she resides at the same address as Dave in the season. Any further presenters? Mr. Bergen, did you or your delegation wish to address anything?
Certainly, if we may, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yep, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just with regard to process that several of the presenters here today brought to light, I won't comment, of course, on the town's advertising or those kinds of things, but I've been doing this now for 30 years, and the first thing that I do is I phone the municipality with regard to process on how the best way it is to handle this situation and what the radius of advertising for this would be. And certainly I am the most affected by this application, given the fact that I own all the land surrounding the subject property that we're seeking to rezone, and certainly do not want to shoot myself in the foot. That would be ridiculous. But I was told that it was about a 60-meter radius that they would advertise to, and I don't believe that that would touch any more than perhaps 2 of the properties that are currently owned or occupied. And so I felt that I would let the process proceed as per the town's bylaw. And so that's why I generally don't, unless some municipalities require what they call a tea party, where you get your neighbors together and you all come and talk. But given the fact that this was going to be advertised and it was going to be advertised to whatever the town felt it was going to go to, then I would leave the process to be the process and come and speak on behalf. So if you could bring up my PowerPoint and we could keep going. One more right now. One more. There's been considerable debate or presentation with regard to the appropriateness of a senior's home within a residential area. I agree that this is a country residential area, 100%. That was mandated by the town when I did my area structure plan for this area. And as much as there seemed to be a demand for large lots, particularly in this current residential economic climate, there just isn't as much demand as was thought at the time. This is just one example of a large seniors home that is in the south side of Lethbridge, and you will see that it is completely nestled within a residential area. So it is most common for seniors homes to be right within a residential neighborhood, which I couldn't agree with more. Again, I've worked on a lot of these, and certainly when we made the application for Green Acres Foundation for the expansion of the Sunny South Lodge, certainly there were neighbors in this room that opposed that development. I wanted to make sure that I was diligent, not only with regard to the property that I own in the neighborhood, but with that of the others. And so I approached a AACI appraiser, so that's a full-blown commercial appraiser, and I sat down with him and interviewed him at length on what is the impact of a seniors residence adjacent to a residential area. And he stated that when they do an appraisal, that there is no red flag, that they would downgrade the value of a property should it be adjacent to a seniors home. Then I went on to talk to a municipal assessor, and I spoke to her at length about the municipal process to evaluating property. What I'm trying to get is an unbiased opinion on, does a seniors home diminish the value of your property? And she too confirmed that their process within the office does not change if a single family home is adjacent a seniors complex. Of course, ours is small, and so it doesn't nearly have the land area required for one that is shown on your screen. But certainly I wanted to make an educated decision that this proposal was not negatively going to affect our neighborhood. The second thing that's been brought up multiple occasions is sidewalks and safety, and the last presenter, I believe, stated that she feared walking on these roads. I developed the seasons at the request of, not the request of, but the town mandated that there be a buffer between the current country residential development and the seasons, and so we created Fieldstone Meadows. I will not accept the fact that our roads are dangerous. This is a town-sanctioned, bylaw-approved development with 9-meter wide roads. That is the criteria set out by the bylaw. That is what we have created. That is what exists elsewhere beyond our development. And people, yes, they walk their dogs, the kids play, they do all these things. But I don't think that the people that have purchased in Fieldstone with children, or those that have purchased in Fieldstone with grandchildren, fear for the life of their kids on these roads. If they do, then perhaps, more thought should have gone into purchasing there. So I don't, as a developer, as someone that upholds your bylaw with my developments, they're not dangerous. And seniors' homes in areas without sidewalks are actually common. Right now. So this is Good Sam's in Raymond. It is a 50-bed facility built, as you can see, right on the fringe of town. So much more extensive than we're doing, so more people living there. No sidewalks on the road, and a privately funded facility, as ours would be, quite a ways from downtown. Next one. I've selected both historic, like homes that have been in the area for a very long time, and homes that have not. So this is York Creek. This seniors home is in Blairmore. If you're familiar with Blairmore, it's across the railroad tracks from downtown and is in a sidewalk-less, if that's a word, neighborhood. Next one. This is Piami Lodge in Picture Butte. This is a facility that I worked on a number of years ago to upgrade. It is along Rogers Avenue, which is the main road going into Picture Butte, which has a similar surface to that of the roads in Fieldstone. The white sign there is the sign that states that it's Piami Lodge, and then to the right of that sign is the access road to the front door of Piami Lodge. The road on the west side of Piami Lodge also does not have a sidewalk. So there's ditches, there's no sidewalks, and we never ever found that there was a problem. Next one. This is a brand new lodge that was just built in the last couple of years in McGrath, Diamond Willow. It too is on roads that are, this one in particular, very busy, the one that runs right through town, Highway 62, I believe it is, and bordering another Central Avenue, which is another road that takes you back up into town. Of course, there's a grade to this road. We have no grade on our road, but again, no sidewalks. And there was a previous seniors home on this property. They demolished it and built this seniors home. And I talked to the town planner there to talk about some of the, whether there was challenges around this. And she said, well, they wouldn't have rebuilt in the same location had they had issues. Next slide. This is an aerial view of Diamond Willow Lodge. So this is the lodge right here. This is Highway 62 that goes through town. Main Street, or the town center, is somewhere up here. This is the other road that goes into town. It is not in what they refer to as country residential, but it is in a large lot area. You can see the houses. There's more typical residential up in this area, but these would be large lot areas where there's been existing homes for many years. And so I would challenge the fact that these seniors couldn't live in the same environment that the rest of us would like to live in a country residential development. I have showed you 4 examples, both new, historic, privately owned and publicly owned facilities, all vetted by the authorities over seniors' homes in the province, that it is acceptable, it does exist, and it is local. These are not locations that are remote to Coaldale. Traffic volumes, certainly I'll let the town speak to that, but the traffic volumes on the roads that we have are absolutely minuscule compared to what the roads are designed to take. So we're nowhere near capacity there. Although it's busier. As it gets busier, people feel the busyness increase, but it's not even close to the capacity of those roads. And likewise, emergency traffic. The town did not want through traffic through the seasons, which we completely agree with. However, every emergency vehicle in this town has a clicker for that gate on the east end of seasons, so they can pass through seasons. It also is a breakaway gate should their clicker battery have died, or they just can't find it or whatever. It's got a breakaway on it, so you can just simply drive right through it. Actually, you can just lift it up manually. So the Fieldstone and Seasons and the people down 30th are not isolated from emergency access. Certainly it is there. There has been more than one presenter suggested that we just go elsewhere. The Seasons, the Fieldstone is some of the cheapest real estate in town. If you look at a typical new residential area being Cottonwood, in Cottonwood you're paying $14.71 a square foot for your lot. In the Fieldstone, I apologize, you pay $8.33 a square foot for a lot. So this same piece of land would cost Tracy $317,000 in Cottonwood, should Blair even entertain selling us a chunk that size. Not to mention, if you're going to go tear down 3 houses in the town of Coaldale to try and make up this kind of square footage, what you would pay. Green Acres Foundation is a publicly funded, publicly owned organization. If you look at your tax slip that you get every year, it will show a line on there for Green Acres. You have to pay, we supplement Green Acres with our tax dollars. And that's to a great benefit of that organization because they do a fantastic job, and it gives seniors the opportunity to live in subsidized housing. Tracy's facility will be private. It will not be subsidized. It will not be part of the AHS. It will be like Good Sam's. It will be like some of the bigger ones in Lethbridge, particularly those on the west side, the View, for instance, near downtown. They're not subsidized, and so you have to pay for all that you get there out of your own pocket. And so she'll be competing with Sunny South Lodge, that is a subsidized building. The benefit to Tracy is that Sunny South is full, and so she will be able to get some of that, some of those folks out of there, but they're still going to have to pay the going rate, which will be substantially more than what the people that are subsidized do in Sunny South Lodge. So I've done the math on this facility, and it is just above break even. So there's no moving to another site unless someone can find me a site for $180,000 at half an acre serviced with fiber, water, sewer, and the rest of it. So there is a good reason for it to be located in this vicinity, simply because we couldn't find another site that was this economical, and I don't see it moving if this site is deemed to be unfit. So, in closing, Your Worship, members of council, the citizens that are presented here are absolutely right, that this is a country residential development. Unfortunately, the bylaw does not allow for facilities of multiple occupancies that are senior. Had I known about this need when I developed this, I may have petitioned the town for an opportunity. This is a bungalow building. It will not negatively impact the neighborhood. I've proven to you today by experts that it is well designed, that it is vetted by several professionals in the healthcare system, that it is funded, that the neighborhood is not unsafe, given the 4 examples that I gave you of towns in close proximity to ours, both publicly and privately owned facilities that are adjacent to roads without sidewalks and ditches. And so with that, I leave you to make your decision, or certainly I'll entertain any more questions.
I just have one question. When you were running the numbers for financial viability of the enterprise, so then that all is predicated on the 12-person occupancy? I mean, there's not any economic viability in a smaller number?
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Tracy brought to my attention that the criteria of Alberta Health Services is 11.5 residents to 1 caregiver. So when we say we're going to have 1 caregiver in the building, that is the ratio mandated by the government. We didn't come up with that number. So yes, there may be another person stop by to mow the lawn or mop some floors during the day or whatever, but we have 24-hour care, and being that these people are not in a high level of care, they generally sleep all night. So the person that's there all night will be doing laundry, folding, getting ready, preparation for meals the next day, those kinds of things, because they can't sleep. They've got to be up. And so the ratio is mandated by the government. We are meeting that ratio. And again, these people do not drive. And so the need for parking on an SL3, again, because I've designed many of them, is not demanding.
So just to clarify, my question was more if you could operate such a facility with 6 people as opposed to...
No, we'd like to, we'd like to up the ratio, but of course we don't have that luxury. And so Tracy and I have been over this many, many times. She's completely comfortable with the 12, but we couldn't change it either way. So no, the math is done on full occupancy.
Any other questions through to the... Thank you. And I'll give the other people in the audience another rebuttal then, if you care to. Mr. Lassiter, is it? Go ahead, sir.
Well, the roads that you pointed out, Douglas, they're main traffic roads. You cannot park on those roads. And then the facilities that you showed, 1/3 of the lot was building and 2/3 of the lot was parking. So your facility doesn't compare with any of those that you related them to.
You can clarify then. Yeah. Clarify then.
The seniors' homes that I presented, I did not state what the level of care was. They may have several SL1s in there.
No, that very well could be, but the roads that you pointed out with no sidewalks, they were main roads. You're not allowed to park on those roads.
I don't know that you're not allowed to park on them.
It's a main access road right into Pitcher Beach. You're not allowed to park on that.
But the access road going to Piami Lodge, the one on the right was their driveway going in.
Yeah, that could be, I'm not
No
sure,
sidewalk.
but I mean, like,
Okay, so I think we've established that it's not necessarily apples to apples then.
And Mr. Mayor, I think some of these comparisons you made are not very realistic. I agree with man here. I think one also comparison he made is the cost of the lot in Cottonwood and ours. The building envelope compared to the lot you can build there is much larger than we can do because of the setbacks we have. So the price per square foot is not an accurate figure, But that's here nor there.
The other comment I want to make is, yes, they're 9-meter roads, but other 9-meter roads also have sidewalks. We have a 9-meter road that people have to walk on the shoulders. You can't walk in the ditch because it's too deep. But our 9-meter road also, you have to consider pedestrians.
Thank you. I'll leave one more opportunity for anybody to speak on this matter? Go ahead, Mr. Boss.
Yeah, same thing. I think all those examples, I talked about shooting yourself with a foot, I think he did, because most of those properties were on like 10-acre lots, you know, like they had oodles of room around them. Like, I built a 3,000 square foot home on a half-acre lot, slightly less, and I think it's full. And here is 8,500 square feet lot, building on a half-acre lot, so there is no room left there. Like, it is, the picture looks nice, but it's not the reality. Like, it is way tighter than what it shows. And running a facility, a 12-unit facility, I think that's highly inefficient. Like, most units are 50 to 100 beds, because that's where you get efficiency of scale. So I think this facility is not, because you need commercial kitchen, you need cooking staff, you need recreational therapists, you need all kinds of people to support those people, especially in SL3 care. That's not just feeding them and putting them to bed. Sorry, like my mom was in a care facility. It takes way more people to run a care facility than one person.
Thank you.
Sorry, I would just add, with the pictures that you showed us, they're not comparable, only because they might not have sidewalks, which is correct. However, if you just take the time to go down into our subdivision, you have the paved road, which is wide enough for vehicles, that's fine. However, once you go off that road, you're in the ditch. So it's not like the illustrations you showed us where they could step on the grass and get out of the way, or push their walker up and get out of the way. There's nowhere for them to go. And as you're saying, you're saying people can park on the side of the road. Well, once you start parking on the side of the road, if you parked one vehicle on either side of the road, you only have enough space to drive a single vehicle through. So that's where the issue is. With regards to getting in and out of the residence by using a clicker to open the gate, I can tell you right now, I do not have a clicker. Okay? I'm with the RCMP, I do not have a clicker to get in that gate. So there is only one entrance. That gate will not open.
Then I just ask maybe administration to clarify the public engagement just again, because there was some discussion about that.
Certainly. If we could have my presentation brought up again. So, Mr. Chair and Council, as I had described in the beginning of my presentation, there is a certain process, let me just find it here, that we go through when we receive applications such as this. So we receive the application, we prepare first reading. It is a bit of a cumbersome process in the sense that once first reading is granted, there can be some misunderstanding that the bylaw is in process and it's just going to get approved. Really what first reading does is it gives the application life, and it allows us to then forecast out where we're going to be advertising. We have mandated periods of time within which we have to advertise and notify. And unfortunately, we're relegated to relatively inefficient means to do that. So we have mail, which we get out as quickly as we can, and we have newspapers, which in this sense come out once a week. So just with reference to one of the comments made about this appearing in a town newsletter and that being disappointing, that was a misunderstanding, because that was actually an article that the Sunny South News ran in their newspaper under no direct request of the town. So that was two separate mediums, two separate bodies doing separate work on the same item. Sometimes that can create a bit of confusion. I do appreciate the commentary on the confusing wording in the advertising and the notification. That's a very common bit of feedback that planners receive, because it can be misunderstood that if you don't have your letter in time, then there's no point. That is why I had indicated later on in my presentation that that's simply a date by which we can ensure that as staff we have written commentary in the staff report. It's never intended to be a final cutoff date several days before a hearing where nobody can speak on the matter after that. So while it is unfortunate that we have the processes that we do, and sometimes they result in some confusion, I certainly appreciate the feedback, and we will adjust where we can in that matter. In that manner, are there any questions from council on the advertising that was done for this?
Any questions through the administration? So then, just to clarify, the first time that this was part of the council agenda was at our January 13th meeting, and there was no prior discussion at the council level on this.
That's correct. It would have been the date at which first reading was granted. I did want to reference the idea of 60 meters being the advertising circulation area. That's certainly a best practice minimum. However, it is under administration's purview when it appears that there might be more interest in an application. That application, the advertising area can be expanded. In this case, I think we've provided reasonable logic to say that the Fieldstone Meadows neighborhood needed to be circulated on this matter. So I believe I've covered that sufficiently. We also do provide advertising in the newspaper, which is just another way of ensuring that folks are aware of these types of proceedings, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's 60 meters or 61 meters. If somebody's interested in an application, they'll find the information they need, and they'll come to these proceedings if they wish. And just finally, with reference to process that Mr. Bergen was speaking on, I certainly didn't think it was necessary to inform him to discuss this type of thing with his neighbors prior to applying for the application, given his significant experience, but I will do so in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Is there any last words? Anybody wants to make one last presentation? The lady in the back.
One thing I'm Art Lancers, like who's funding this? Like if it's privately funded, who's doing it? Is it Mr. Bergen? Is it Tracy?
Well, my understanding is it would be Tracy. That's
And who is she? Like
our.
who is she?
She was introduced at first.
Yes, so, Mr. Mayor, if I can. So, this is Tracy's idea to do this. She had partners in, I don't want to go too much into her personal financial
Right.
setup, but she had partners in the original plan to go into seasons. That dissolved after that was, so the partners in this would be Gary Rankman of Montera, who has done Solera here in town, and myself as a landowner to support her through land, and Tracy as well as the operator will also be a partner.
Thank you. All right. Any last, this is one last opportunity. The gentleman in the back, you haven't had us. Tyler Meggies, okay. And your address, please, Tyler?
3133 Cole Street.
And you signed into the,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Go ahead, Tyler.
Is it the intent to build more of these units? Is that part of the map?
Well, there's no other applications for any rezoning before council, so this is the only parcel that's been, there's one single parcel that's been chosen to be, go through the rezoning process. So unless other parcels within that area structure plan made a application for rezoning, currently there is only one before us.
I'm just wondering about intent, though. Is there any intent on future if this one's passed?
No, through to the questioner, the applicant says that there is no more intent. All right.
Guarantee on that. What's the guarantee on that one? That sounds pretty vague to me.
Well, I guess in life, in real estate, there's never any guarantees on.
Been there, seen it.
I want to mention about the clicker.
Pardon me?
About the clicker, seeing it was mentioned, it is not available to everybody. The ambulance came for my neighbor who fell outside on ice, broke a hip, and they said, "What's the matter? The ambulance is not showing up." Oh, there was a mistake. They went through the gate opening and they don't have a clicker. Is it possible that you relate that to them if they don't have one to go down 845 and 30th?
All right, well, thanks for that. That will administer.
They
Okay.
had to treat her for hypothermia before they could do anything on her, and she ended up having to have hip and joint and bowel replacement.
Thank you, Gemma. That
Okay.
doesn't pertain to this application, but
I was just going to mention, that's an Alberta Health Services issue because the ambulance is run by the province, not by the town. And when they go into code red, it comes out of Lethbridge. So they wouldn't have a clicker. The clicker would be in the Coaldale ambulances and not in the Lethbridge unit, so.
But if they all knew about it here, the ambulance came from here, would that not be that they would automatically take the other way up down 30th?
And that's an Alberta Health Services. We don't have any jurisdiction over the ambulance service since the province took it over.
So who is one supposed
okay.
to talk to?
Thank you for that, Gemma. We can take that offline if you wouldn't mind. It's a very good comment to have in the public realm and that, and a concern that we need to share, but we can't address that right now. This is, but thank you very much for that. So then, with respect to the current application for rezoning, is there anybody that wants to have their voice heard before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Is there any questions of council through to any party? Does council feel they have enough information before them to make their decision on it? Okay. One last chance for any input. I don't see any, so therefore I will close the public hearing. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody that made time, and starting February 24th, we'll be having our meetings at starting at 5 o'clock, so the concern about the early start time will disappear. One, we have the regular council meeting minutes of January 13. Yep. We're on that item right now, 3.1. Councillor Pauls, you want to speak to that perhaps? Your mic, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. We don't have the Nerf gun yet.
Mr. Mayor and fellow councillors, I screwed up. When we had the first reading of this, we had a vote, and I voted no, and then we stopped. And then the next 2 weeks later, when we had it, I didn't catch it in the minutes. So my bad. I caught it. I figured it out. Went to see Kaylin. Kaylin straightened it out. Josh straightened it out. Now I'm straightening it out. So please don't beat me with a stick. Sorry.
Can you clarify, Kellen, the part that's...
Item 6.3, was it not?
Yes, 6.3.
Item 00863, rezoning bylaw.
Yes.
And you're clarifying that you voted in opposition, is that the?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then I would, if you want to keep the mic live, then you could perhaps make a motion to amend the minutes of January 13th as discussed.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Paul to amend those minutes as discussed. Any discussion, Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to refrain from voting as I was absent from that January 13th meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so without any further ado, I'll call the question. All in favor? And we have it recognized that Councillor Avery abstained from that. Thank you. And then we have item 3.2, regular council meeting minutes of January 27, 2020. And are there any errors or omissions, deletions, amendments? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. Councillor Avery makes that motion. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, and now without further ado, we have a delegation 5.1, and we have Cam Mills and Darlene Sinclair. You don't often get treated to such an entertaining afternoon, I'll bet, so.
Wow. It's always a very interesting learning curve. Okay.
Welcome.
This will be much easier on you.
I can introduce it if
Okay.
you like.
Please.
Thank you, Council. Yes, so I'm here with Darlene Sinclair, the Executive Director is the title of the Community Futures Lethbridge Region. And we've taken the opportunity here to speak with you a little bit about the Community Futures Business Improvement Loan Program. So we've prepared a brief presentation for you, which we'll put up on the screen shortly. Basically, we'll provide a bit of an outline of the history of the program, some of its usage, and then we'll move into discussing some opportunities to perhaps adjust the program going forward to probably align it with sort of our vision for economic development, if you will, in the community. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about making some formal recommendations to adopt some changes to it. So if you wouldn't mind throwing it up on screen. And then do I have the ability to control it here? Great. So I'm going to pass things over to Ms. Sinclair, and she'll take us through sort of the history of the program and how it exists currently.
All right, thanks, Cam. So thanks for the ability to come back. We've had a little bit of discussion previously, so this will just bring you, just refresh some of the information. So in November of 2011, the town of Coaldale worked with Community Futures to kick off the program, encouraging businesses to invest in their downtown locations. The downtown core was exclusive. That program was exclusive just to the downtown core, a very specific area. $6,000 was made available in the form of grants from the town, and at that time our interest rates were at 8% on our loans. Seeing that there was a good uptake and the fact that each one of the communities surrounding Lethbridge are actually shareholders in Community Futures, I went to the board asking them for a recommendation to drop our interest rate to 5% to try to stimulate some nice economic return for your communities. When we talk about the downtown core, that's the area that was that we were supplied the map of. So very specifically to those businesses in that area could apply for the business improvement loans. So since inception, the economic impact, so there's been $100,000 worth of money lent out from Community Futures to businesses. The investment from the town was about $9,557.62. That $10,000, and sorry, I just got back from vacation last night. I probably would have looked at the overall, so that $100,000, I can almost guarantee you that there would have been at least 3 times that amount of money. So when businesses apply specifically for the $10,000, quite often they're doing a $30,000 to a $50,000 renovation. The cap is $10,000 of what is supported, just for clarification on that. So, you know, in the last little while, we've had some feedback between myself and my staff. We make sure we come to the Coaldale Chamber meetings. We come out to our communities at least once a year, and we always ask them about our programs, and this one in particular, right? So in October, there was an update done to council on the current program. We presented on the BIL program to the Chamber, because that's where we'd been asked to come out to the Coaldale Chamber, that other businesses were asking, is there a possibility to expand the program and how would that happen? So I went out to that meeting. We had some two-way dialogue, told them what the format would be like. So in November, what we did is we developed a survey and had the town work with us to distribute to all the business licenses, asking for a completion date of November 22nd. So what we did is we had all the responses coming back to our office, and then those who said that they wanted more information overall on what Community Futures does, etc., we got back to those businesses. We closed the survey at 4:30 on November 22nd, and we tabulated the results. On November 13th, I came back and presented to the chamber that the town was on side with us doing the survey, and we were going to get the feedback. December 11th, I came into town before the chamber meeting and had the pleasure of meeting with Cam and Kaylin, and we just discussed what the results were and what a new program could look like. So we just threw some ideas out there and then just worked towards the presentation here. Following that meeting here at the town, then I presented to the chamber that the town was on side at looking at some new ideas, and then I would just, we would keep them up to date as that progressed.
Josh, did you get the updated slide? That's fine. We'll just, we can go from here.
Okay.
You just want to talk and I'll show them the pictures.
Okay. Are you putting up?
It's got the wrong one, so.
Oh, okay. And I don't know if I have a survey in front of me. I probably don't, sorry.
That's fine. I can just
You can.
cover the relevant information here. So, I'm sorry, I've got a little mix-up
Oh,
on the slide.
unless you
But,
on this one.
so we have, the survey results basically showed there were 8 questions that were asked by Community Futures. A few of them relate specifically to this program. One of the pieces of information that was interesting was with respect to how long businesses have been in operation. We showed that 35% of respondents to the survey had been in operation for more than 10 years, and 30% had been in between 3 and 5 years. Basically, there was 3 pieces of information specifically that came out of the survey that were important. It was clear that we needed to increase program awareness, so the general awareness of the program of the survey respondents was relatively low. It's interesting because it is something that's widely discussed. I've myself heard Community Futures discuss it at chamber meetings, for example, but it's perhaps the message isn't sticking, might be a better way of understanding that. Second, there was a call for an increase to the maximum available loan amount. So there's some suggestion with respect to some of those responses that 10,000 was a little bit low in terms of being an incentive for folks to consider. And then there was also a call to make the program available to a wider range of businesses beyond strictly storefront businesses in the downtown core. So with that in mind, so we took a look at this and we said, well, how does the business improvement loan program identify with our approach to economic development here in the town of Coaldale? So first of all, the identified vision for Council for Economic Development is to make Coaldale a vibrant, innovative, and inviting commerce center. So that's sort of the baseline of the work we do in economic development. And more specifically, a goal outlined within meeting that vision is to undertake initiatives that set up the private sector for long-term success. So we view the Business Improvement Loan Program as being in line with both that vision and that stated goal. And the third point there is not specifically mentioned in our existing strategic plan, but I think that this is an important one. It's that the program itself is measurable, it's effective, and it allocates town resources efficiently. So one of the things we've discussed as a group is this concept of seeking to work in economic development without necessarily taking an approach that's taken by some other municipalities where a great deal of money is spent administratively on sort of the typical economic development department work. So for us, we have a reasonably light staffing component that works in economic development. So what's attractive about this program is that we can see measurable impacts from what it does while at the same time it doesn't create a large administrative burden that requires a great deal of Town of Coaldale staff to administer on a day-to-day basis. So for that reason, it does make some sense. So what we wanted to do is look at how do we position Coaldale as the #1 business improvement loan program in Southern Alberta. So the business improvement loan program that Community Futures runs for the Town of Coaldale is also offered to other members of that region, and it's also possible for other Community Futures regions to have these types of programs. So we looked at this and said, how can we make Coaldale's business improvement loan program the very best that it can be? And we're proposing 4 things. First of all, we can increase the eligible loan amount from its existing $10,000 up to a $25,000 cap. That will make this the largest viable loan amount within the region, and as far as I can tell, the largest I've seen, though I don't have access to every single program that exists. Second, we'd propose to expand the reach of the program to any commercial or industrial business within Coaldale, which is to say any commercial or industrial business within the town corporate limits. The only type of business then that wouldn't be included in this program would be a home-based business. Third, allow for repeat program use so long as previous loans are paid in full. So currently, my understanding is that if a business takes advantage of the program once, they're not eligible to take advantage of it in the future. Our proposal is to say if a business wants to continue to invest in Coaldale and expanding their presence in Coaldale, that we'd continue to support them through the program. And then lastly, to enlarge the eligibility improvement criteria to include greenscaping, and I'll note, I would also suggest considering adding infrastructure tie-in improvements. We know that that might be a particular source of interest for some of our Main Street businesses that want to spend a little money upgrading their water and sewer services once the street is open, so that might be an opportunity for them as well. In terms of what that looks like, so if you take a look at the program, currently we budget $10,000 for this particular initiative. If a $25,000 loan is granted under this program, the cost to the Town of Coaldale is $1,950.81. So we pay the interest on a 3-year loan for $25,000. That's our interest cost. We basically make that payment immediately upon the loan going out. So that's our cost. So basically, with the $10,000 we have in budget, we have the capacity to support about $128,000 of loans within our existing $10,000 budget. One thing to consider is that if a business's value is increased by $25,000, there is a revenue implication for the Town of Coaldale. So we would receive, based on current tax rates, an additional $263 a year from that business. So on $1,950, that represents a 7.5-year payback. I will say, though, that it is unlikely that $25,000 of investment would actually result in a full $25,000 of increased assessed value, but I can't say exactly what that would be. Every case is a little bit different, but it's something to keep in mind. From my perspective, when we take a look at this, we've always budgeted, or for the last number of years, we budgeted $10,000, but we haven't had anyone access the program since 2016. So from my perspective, when you look at any sort of cap on the amount of value that's loaned out, it only really becomes an issue once we're hitting the amount where we're running out of money within budget to support it. So we've got the capacity for $128,000. Capping it at $10,000 per loan means we can support theoretically 12 or 12 and a half, 13 loans. At this point, that would be decreased. But then again, I would suggest that, you know, if we end up expanding the program and it becomes more popular and we see $128,000 worth of applications to invest in improving businesses in the downtown core and other areas of the community, then we're sort of in a position of having a wonderful problem where we have to decide, okay, now we've got so much investment that's happening in our community, what do we do? Do we say the program's closed until next year, or we say, wow, this is great, let's find a little bit more money to fund a little bit more, or we can restrict the types of applicants to sort of scale down the amount of applications we're getting. But to me, that's sort of a cross that bridge when you come to it kind of problem. You know, let's analyze the results from some of the loans once we've seen a little bit more interest coming in on the program. So what do these changes do? Well, it makes us the only community in the region offering business improvement loans to more than one area or district. We become the community with the largest loan amount cap by a substantial margin. Most communities are at the $10,000 range. Lethbridge is 10,000 with, I believe, an additional 5,000 in the business revitalization zone, as I understand it. So they go up to 15
They go up to
within
15,
one
yeah,
very
yeah,
specific region. We'd also have the program that promotes the widest range of eligible improvements, and we would have no limit on the number of times a business can apply for these loans. So we can take that information, and then when we're raising awareness for the program, it's another opportunity for us to showcase this to our business community that says, not only do we offer this program, but we're proud to say that this is the most pro-business program that you're going to find. This is another way that we're stepping up, and in addition to our low business tax rate, look what else we can do for you. So it sort of sells itself from my perspective, so it's an interesting opportunity. At that point, I'll maybe suggest that if there's questions that council has with respect to the program, we're happy to answer them.
Hey, thank you, Cam and Darlene, for the presentation. So Darlene, earlier you were saying that because of the lack of drawdown on loans, that there was funds carried forward, and you were going to clarify, were you holding that in a bank account still, or did that get paid back to the town?
Yeah, so that money has been paid back to the town, and so now all of our communities, we work the same way. Once a loan is actually approved, and then we're going to disperse on the loan amount, then we invoice the town for that full interest. So the money's in your bank account until there's a business improvement loan has been approved.
Any questions through to the presenters? Yeah, it's very good. You paid close attention to what we communicated. I think we have a winner here. Okay, Councilor Pauls.
Do you have to be a Chamber of Commerce person or any business?
So the proposal is any business in town, with the exception of home-based businesses.
Oh, well, that's a problem. Okay, thanks.
To clarify on the chamber part, right? So I always make sure myself or one of my staff are at the chamber meetings, so we discuss it a lot. We have the opportunity to be in front of those specific businesses, but I do agree that we need to work with the town to a higher degree to make sure that the information at the town office level gets out more. So, I mean, I've got some ideas on what I would work with administration on to try to increase the awareness.
That's good, because from my experience, there's not a wide representation of chamber businesses at the meeting, so I think it'd be a good marketing concept to find a supplemental conduit to getting the information out to Coaldale businesses. Councillor Simpson.
I think this is a great thing, and I know being the chamber rep, it's something that's really well liked. So with that, I would like to go with a recommendation that council modify the regulations governing the BIL program to position Coaldale as the most business-friendly program in Southern Alberta region by A, B, and C.
If I may I was going to suggest that a fourth item, D, to allow businesses to utilize the program more than once, so long as the existing loans are fully repaid, should be clarified as well.
That is friendly. Item D, repeat business provided satisfactory repayment of previous loans. Okay, so we have a motion by Councillor Simpson as per the recommendation with the addition of fourth bullet, the ability to draw down on the program more than once, as long as there's satisfactory loan repayment history. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Go forth and lend. Okay, and now we're Spencer. Do you want to address council on item 6.1? I'll just clarify to council that we have closed the public hearing, and we're not in the effort of taking on any new information. We're dealing with information that we have heard at the public hearing and within the council package. So go ahead, Spencer.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing else of substance to add to the discussion at this point, and I'm happy to field any questions that council may have prior to a decision.
Through to administration. Councillor Holm?
Clarification, so if this was approved at this point, then it would still be coming to Municipal Planning Commission for further approval, is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Holm, that is correct, and I hope I've done a sufficient job of clarifying where the focus of council should be considering a change in terms of the permitted and discretionary uses and changes to setbacks. Anything else would be under the purview of the Planning Commission.
Okay, so the only reason I was asking that is I just did really quick mental math, and I'm not sure that it would meet municipal planning for the size of property if we included the driveways and everything. I think we're up close to 50% of coverage for that lot, which I'm not sure, but I think we're getting really close to missing it on that end too.
If I may, Mr. Chair, certainly that's an important consideration. If we look at the site coverage for the country residential zoning, it's 35% for principal building and 10% for accessory building up to 1,200 square feet. For residential R1A, it is 45% inclusive of all buildings. So if there were no garage, it would be only 45% for the building itself. And that doesn't include driveways or uncovered decks, for instance. It typically only includes impervious surface.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through to Spencer. I think that the observation I made through the public hearing was a comment on, or comments about the no sidewalks and the use of the roads for pedestrian use. In that light, I believe the whole area from 30th along 30th Avenue is built in that methodology. So although that doesn't apply to this particular bylaw, I think it's just an observation that I think that the area structure plan approves for that kind of development without sidewalks.
Councillor Holm?
Last question on this. I know we're talking SL3s and non-mobility. My mother lives in the View. She's 93, and she had finally, I took her driver's license away from her a few months ago, and she's not very happy about it, but there is a very high percentage of people in the View that actually do drive. So is there any opportunities on this site to add 5 parking spots or 6 parking spots, at least half, to accommodate something like that? Because if it's built without it, we're going to have a real issue with parking there.
Through the chair to Councillor Holm, that would be up to the developer of the site to decide if they wish to proceed with the development if the Planning Commission were to put a condition on a potential hypothetical approval, saying that they had to install X number of additional parking stalls, which is fully within the rights of the Planning Commission to do so. I will mention, and Council is already aware of this, but if there were any consideration of wanting a more detailed understanding of what this would look like, and having Council have control over future development in a more detailed way, there is direct control as a zoning that would be much more under your control from a detailed development perspective.
Councillor Lloyd?
Thank you, Your Worship. That's a concern of mine too, is for sure, is the parking, because I know that a lot of them are still driving, and I know that there's visitors that want to park, and I'm concerned about the sidewalks issue as well. So, Spencer, at what point do we do a direct control? Is that something that's done right now or later on?
Through the chair to Councillor Lloyd, this wouldn't be dissimilar from what happened with the Solara development. So I'm not sure if Council recalls, but with that development, there was an attempt to go with a separate zoning for a portion of that property. It was defeated, and there was a significant community feedback on that proposal. It was suggested at the end of that hearing, if I recall correctly, that direct control is something that the developer could entertain if they so wish, given that this is a fully developer-driven application. So in that sense, from a procedural perspective, this bylaw would need to be defeated, and then it would be entirely up to the developer if they wish to proceed with a direct control bylaw at that point, which I would suggest they discuss the details of a proposed bylaw before making the application with the community.
So with, I mean, I do feel that this micro senior proposal merits a lot of consideration within our community. I like the concept. I'm a little conflicted on whether or not the specific site is the right one, perhaps, as stated by the people. So, but if this were to go through, then it's noteworthy to remind people that there's still the MPC process to go through, and there's be a public process on that with notification and all that would entail, and then it could at that point in time not necessarily be approved either, given there's not an automatic approval of this. I know that the developer is presented way over and above what is required for this initial stage of the process, and I thank them for being proactive in doing that and whatnot, but we still not quite all the way home yet, even if we did just do the rezoning. But so I'm a little bit conflicted in my mind on where I lie on my vote on approving or not. But anyway, Councillor Holm.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm the same way. My emotions are taking into this more than maybe the pure logic of it, and I'm very certain that if I owned a property in this area, I would want myself to vote against this. And I walk my dog there almost every day. We go through that part of the town and stuff, and it's an absolutely wonderful layout of the facilities and stuff. I truly do not believe that this fits within that community. So I certainly will be voting against it. And with that, I would like to make a motion to bring second reading forward so that we can take this to a vote. And you now know exactly how I will be voting on this.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to for second reading of the bylaw, and so I think Councillor Holm and I have both voiced sort of our leanings thus far. So before I call the vote, if anybody has any compelling for or against arguments, I would like to hear them. But Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And speaking to the motion, I will also be voting against the proposal. That being, I think the good faith that people have invested into our community is certainly primary and foremost on everybody's minds. And I know that looking back and looking forward, I think that the fact that people have expressed their position and their certainly the small town, the community look and feel that they wanted in this community has certainly been made very, very clear. And I think one of the things that we as a council and planning, the planning department should really take in very seriously the what fit would look best in Coaldale, and what kind of a community where this might fit in Coaldale, because seniors housing certainly has been clearly indicated to me on various occasions that this is a must and a real need in this community. So I think for the Tracys of the world, it's something that she can certainly encounter as a good move forward, and we just need to have the right fit for this location, for this kind of a community.
Councillor Pauls.
I'm just very happy to see that we're going to win. Thank you.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, you guys are joining in on the no side.
Oh, okay.
So that, I'm kind of happy about that.
Okay, Councillor Simpson?
I actually love this idea. I love the house itself. I know in the future we will have to consider our in-laws and my own parents into a home, and I know this is something they would choose over a large facility. But unfortunately, I don't love the location because of the lack of sidewalks and just the community, but also just exactly where it's located. And so I really hope that going forward, administration can work with the applicant to find a proper spot for this, because it is needed, and I think it's a great idea. I personally would have no problem with it being beside me. I would actually love that. So I really hope we can work together with you guys for the future.
And Councillor Lloyd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think everything's been said. I was really excited about having a facility like this because it's not going to be too long before we're going to be needing something. But I just don't think that this is the location. I really do have a concern about the parking and the sidewalks and the space. There's just not enough space there. So I won't be voting against it as well.
And Councillor Raby, you're fine? Okay, okay, call the question. All in favor? And opposed?
Your Worship, can I just make a motion going forward that administration work with the applicant in finding a location within the town of Cold Elf that would be more properly suited for it?
Okay. We have a motion by Councillor Simpson. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, and then item 7.1, strategic plan update.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we have here is a dedicated website that was designed and provided to us by Tracy Lawrenson of Paragon Strategic Planning Services. She did and facilitated the council strategic update session of October 2019 with council. And what you'll see here, you've seen, as a group, you've seen the content. What you haven't seen is whether you like it in sort of a dedicated website digital form. Of course, the more traditional means is a really nice brochure, magazine, PDF that's on our website with printouts. This is more of a dedicated website layout. So the content, the nuts and bolts, you've seen and reviewed. This is what it looks like in more of a dedicated website format. So given that this is the first time that this has been on the council public agenda since your strategic planning retreat, I'll just go through the different sections if that's okay at the same time. So at a high level, there's 12 categories from the initial council strategic plan of 2017. Those have been condensed following council's direction to 5 categories that are a little bit more overarching, though the substance has remained for the most part intact. Some of the categories, they were amalgamated, but they were included as subcategories of these larger, broader categories, if that makes sense. So it's not just, there's only 5 survivors out of 12 categories. Some of the 12 categories would fit into these now broader categories than before. So this starts with the key focus areas. The first one is focus on community safety, making Coldell a safe and secure place to live, work, and play, no matter the season, place, or time. That's verbatim from the 2017 Council Strategic Plan. There's also focus on livability. We are a community that is safe, friendly, vibrant, and environmentally conscious. We're aging in place as possible where good experiences happen. You also have focus on economic health. We are committed to making Coaldale a vibrant, innovative, and inviting commerce center, making bold and strategic decisions that produce long-term dividends for the community. We just saw in the Community Futures presentation, for example, excerpts from that very statement. Focus on good governance and corporate excellence. We are a local government that works tirelessly, I almost said that right, to ensure Coaldale continues to be a community of choice, an organization known for corporate excellence. Focus on responsible and responsive growth. We are proactive and deliberate as we plan our future. We steward our infrastructure in a manner that allows us to simultaneously support, stimulate, and fund the growth of our community. So those are the big 5 pillars. And then below, there are the subcategories within those big 5. So we'll start with community safety. The first subcategory would be emergency management and preparedness. Be a model community with respect to emergency preparedness and emergency management. The next one is transportation. Investing in transportation initiatives that improve walkability, connectivity, and pedestrian and vehicular safety. The next one is fire services. Continue to provide the resources required by the Coaldale and District Emergency Services Department to achieve and maintain elite status. And then policing. Continue to work with the RCMP to support services to our residents. So that's the community safety category. As you'll note, public safety was the word or the category that was used in the 2017 version. As you're aware, this is community safety, which gives you a little bit of a broader net. So this is still draft until you say otherwise, but I'm just kind of explaining some of the thought process from the consultant's perspective. Focus on livability. We are a community, so I went over the tagline for livability. Amalgamated within this heading is recreation, culture and events, parks and beautification, education and outreach, and service delivery. So we'll start with recreation. That Coaldale build recreational capacity by empowering, facilitating, collaborating, and leveraging partnership opportunities. Again, taken verbatim from the previously approved plan. Culture and events. Showcase our community through our support for culture and our recognized events. Parks and beautification, where aesthetics drive commerce. For example, curb appeal, strong first impressions. Outreach and education. Identify and explore educational programming partnerships and opportunities between local schools and various town departments. As you know, with the Fire Academy, that is happening, and it's happening well. Service delivery, a focus on professionalism and innovation in service delivery, and that would encompass the services that our operations department does, for example, like your snow, your street sweeping. So give them a little bit of love out there for their hard work. Focus on economic health, the sub-pillars within that overarching objective. Revitalize downtown, support infrastructure improvements and business vitality in our downtown core to create economic momentum for the town. Business retention and health. Our existing businesses fuel our economy, and we support them while attracting new businesses. Facilitate private sector initiatives. We create an environment and processes that set up the private sector investment for long-term, success. Delete the word "the" there. And then there's business attraction. Position our town as the best place to grow a business with a focus on businesses that align with our strategic direction. The next one is focus on good governance and corporate excellence. Within that category is providing excellent value for money. And speaking with council, providing good value for money was the previous verbiage. Council wanted to kick that up a notch, so good and excellent, I replaced the word good. I think we're kicking some butt there. So deliver services to our residents that provide excellent value for money. Advocacy, focus on targeted advocacy with other levels of government to support our strategic goals and long-term interests. Community engagement, encourage proactive and meaningful engagement. Relationships, create and maintain strong relationships with our regional neighbors and our other levels of government. Performance accountability, council focuses on discipline and professionalism in supporting the town. Last but certainly not least, focus on responsible and responsive growth. This bundled the planning and the infrastructure as well as with some economic development components. So there's land use planning, deliver services to our residents. Oh, that was caught the first mistake there. That's just, we're plagiarizing from finance there. Management of assets, that's not correct either. Okay, so invest in core infrastructure. Utilize our guiding documents to enable strong decision-making and grant funding readiness. Some examples of this would be your infrastructure master plan, your municipal development plan, your transportation master plan. Those would be strategies that would fit. Opportunity, readiness, and preparedness. Yeah, that looks. Utilize our guiding documents to enable strong decision-making when land use development opportunities, prospective commercial industrial enterprises, and or grant funding streams arise. So I'll have to, it looks like a couple of the updates didn't save in this last link, but I think you're getting an idea for like the structure of the website and how that could work for residents looking to figure out what's council's strategic vision, what's happening in the town. And this is a website that's actually fairly easy to use and edit, so you can, as new strategies or achievements occur, you can update and add to the list on this website. So as you can see, there's a community and organizational successes part on the website. So just a couple of examples. There's the Financial Reporting Award, Coldell being recipients of the 2018 Canadian Award for Financial Reporting. And there's some verbiage there on what exactly that award is for. I could read them out. Okay, I saw 2 no's. Okay. Community Safety Award, of course, we are recipients of the 2018 Minister's Award for Municipal Excellence. There's Eastview Park collaboration, really good partnership with Town of Coaldale and the Kinsman Club of Coaldale. The 2018 Communities in Bloom Award recipients, 5 blooms, should be 2 exclamation marks. Then there's the National Outstanding Achievement Award, Communities in Bloom, for the Canada 150 Maple Leaf Project. That was a national award. There's Malloy Phase 2A, the Stormwater Implementation Project. 3 big, I think, victories with that project. The first one is the collaboration between Town of Coaldale, Lethbridge County, and SMRID. There's the $4.3 million grant from the province of Alberta. And then there's the 300,000 cubic meters of storage that protect Coaldale's western boundary from overland flooding. Then there's the 2019 Coaldale Centennial Pathway Project, the Kid Andrews Fire Academy, launched in 2019, and it's only going to get bigger. It is going quite well, and I'm getting good feedback from our fire department, who are the key instructors. So those are just a couple of samplings. That section is going to grow exponentially as council continues to execute the projects in the capital plan. There's your lovely portraits, and you can make this a little bit interactive as well for contact. We already have a contact the counselor section on our website, so I'll have to work with IT a little bit on whether the duplication is helpful or confusing. But I just wanted to present this to council to show you like where things are at following the council strategic planning retreat. Here's the draft form of it. Happy to take any comments, any draft, revisions. I was asked to ask council from the consultant, this is your strategic plan, so feel free to ask questions or make comments, massage wording. This is kind of draft 1 following our 2-day session back in October.
Well, thank you on behalf of council for that, and it looks like it's a aspiring work in progress, and it needs a little bit more tweaking and refining by what I've heard today, but it's a great start, I think. Hopefully we can add our business loan package that we approved today on there for business and retention aspect as well. Okay, anybody have any comments through to administration? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thank you to you and also to Tracy for all this thought process and the vision behind it. My only question, Kaylin, is on the policing component and whether community policing is understood or is built into that one module.
Oh, my red light is still on. I think I was quiet. If we want to scroll up a little bit, there is a subcategory that covers policing. What you would like to say as the tagline explanation, like that's completely up to council. There it is. So one word, policing. So, it's the tagline beneath it says, continue to work with the RCMP to support services to our residents. You can jazz that up. It's the sky's the limit, essentially, of what you want to say about that point. I think the key point in the council strategic planning sessions is that policing was notably absent from the public safety wing. Instead, in the previous council strategic plan, there was the initiative of hiring an additional member, so a very specific targeted point, but there wasn't an overarching governance visionary statement. There was just a project, and we hired the 9th member. Okay, now what? So this is sort of timeless now. So the pillar's there, and what you want it to say is, yeah, totally up to council.
Councillor Lloyd?
Your Worship, I'd like to compliment you and your staff and Tracy on the report. It's so easy to read and it's nice to look at. And I think we can all pat ourselves on the back. I think we've done some good things in Coaldale. We need to recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to that point, that's a great opening for my one small minor confession. There's so much good going on that we didn't quite have time to update all of the initiatives and projects that fit within each of the key strategic areas. The intent is to have specific projects, initiatives like the business loan improvement program, and it's now #1 in the region, from what I understand now. So I got a thumbs up there. So yes, that's something that we would want to brag about. And you can see under the key projects where examples like that would fit. That's the only thing that's missing, and it'll be kind of added on a council meeting by council meeting basis, because if there are, in a couple months from now, a couple of other new initiatives or a new award or something like that, we can very easily continue to update this website so it remains current. That's the neat part about this as opposed to a printed magazine, because once that's printed, you can write in with pen something, but it looks a bit more tacky than a updated website.
So then are you looking for anything at this point, or just received the draft strat plan for information?
Yeah, or feedback on changes would be helpful so that I don't bring back, I don't want to keep bringing the same thing back if this is, not. Like I sent council originally a Microsoft Word document with the verbiage. This is just what that verbiage looks like in a web form, minus a couple little cut and paste errors because I saw a few redundancies, but it's getting closer.
Yep. I don't think there's any significant errors or omissions or critical flaws in it. It looks like a very good work in progress, and it'll be exciting. It'll be a link on our existing website. Is that how it functions, or what?
When brainstorming with Josh, there might be a special dedicated URL for this specifically that would also link to our website, but it'll have kind of a catchy .ca in order for people to see, and that's something that we could use as a marketing. So I could say the ideas out loud right now, but someone might buy the URLs that we were looking at. So, but that's kind of the idea, is something catchy .ca.
I like that.
And then
register that way.
So that's the thought process, but we didn't want to jump the gun on that if this was a flop. So
Totally not a flop in my estimation. Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So is there a possibility for each one of those, when somebody has a comment on social media, for the town to go in? So if somebody's got a comment about the new fire station, that they can go in and you can put the link so it takes them right to that fire service link, or the project, and it takes them right to the new project, Civic Square or any of those that, people have the naysayers, where they can get the facts and the information, but not just the person that's commenting negatively, the people that want the positive information so they can share that to other members, the high school. Like, all of that should be where you can just put a link, the town can post it. And that way we're putting our positive message out. Each and every time there's something negative that doesn't have the facts in it, there should be a facts page now.
Through to Councillor Abbey, that's an excellent point. I can look in to see what the full capability of taking this a step further and making it bigger is, because it would be, if you're clicking under the fire hall renovation and expansion project, under community safety, under fire hall, having a link that takes you to pictures, here's where we're at so far, and really make it like a really good information / brag page. I will check on that. I assume that's possible, because this has been very user friendly so far.
Well, I can see how handy that'd be for the Rec Center High School project, because we should have a multitude of links that shows how we mitigated all the concerns that people have raised throughout there, and be able to drive them to that site and give them the unbiased facts of all the progress made on that. So That would be great. So a motion to approve, you want it not approved yet? You want to bring back a final version?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Motion to receive the draft strat plan for information at this point then? Okay, Councillor Holm makes that motion, all in favor? Okay. Okay, and then we have 7.2. Cam, I think the ORSC grant, you wanna? Kalen very nicely told you for this, I guess.
So what's on screen here is sort of the first page of a larger grant application. We worked with the Old Man River Regional Service Commission to put an application together for a grant to improve or to upgrade their software. So this was a grant for, I believe it ended up being in the $100,000 range that was applied for. So the Old Man River Association needed to apply for the grant through one of its members. And we took the opportunity to use our eligibility for this grant for that purpose, with the thought being that the grant has more weight when it comes from a larger member. So there are 45 members that are participating that would benefit from this grant. Coaldale is amongst the largest of those. And then we also had the ability to use some of our expertise, which is my way of saying me, to help them sort of wordsmith the document. They have a tremendous amount of technical experience, and so I could utilize their technical experience, and then I have a little more experience on sort of the grant and financial side of things, so we could put our heads together and do that. So we wanted to provide this update to council, and then what we'll also need in order to finalize this application is a letter of support or a council resolution supporting this particular application from each of the member municipalities that it benefits, because this is a grant that focuses on collaborative projects. So each of the member municipalities will need to provide this. So this is our formal request that council do just that, to provide us with a resolution to carry forward with that project.
Thank you, Cam. Any questions through the Cam? Pretty straightforward. Councillor Holm?
Yeah, it looks very straightforward. One quick question, and as you say, this is kind of you. Are we talking a lot of man hours that we're going to be required to move this forward prior to us getting the grant?
No, so it's already, the document you saw was already completed. So basically what the process was Jamie, who's the lead technician for the GIS program at ORSC, did the bulk of the work, and then I just provided advice on how to word items. So it maybe 3-4 hours of my time wasn't significant. There's no additional time that's required at this point. The work is already done.
Councillor Holm?
I would move that we proceed with this application and the resolution.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Thank you, Cam. Okay, and then we have section 8, the departmental reports. We have 8.1. Kyle.
Yes, good afternoon. So this is the pre-audit letter that comes out this time of the year for our 2019 audit. It's going to commence in the next month or so here. Just kind of standard information that the auditor likes to present council as what the scope of the audit is, what they're looking for, what the areas of risk that they generally look at within a municipality, and give council some more information for the audit. So this is just more information for council. But if there's any questions, I can comment on anything.
Questions through the Kyle on this? I just noted in the proposal or their information that they were talking about an audit committee. Of course, we don't have one. Was that a recommendation that they would like to see an audit committee struck, or are they okay with presenting audit committee kind of findings to committee of the whole, like i.e. council?
Yeah, committee of the whole, something like council works perfectly fine. Audit committee is good, but sometimes that does create some difficulties with, you know, in the grand scheme of things, Coalville is a lot smaller in size than a lot of the other municipalities they deal with. So committee of the whole council works perfectly fine.
Thank you. You just need this for information?
Yeah,
then?
it's just information to council, so we don't need anything signed back, just so you have it, you could read it.
Okay, Councillor Chapman? Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Chapman to receive this report for information. All in favor? Okay, thank you, Kyle. And then we have the development stats that are a modest start to the year. What do you expect for January? Councillor Chapman moves receipt for information of 8.2. Any questions? All in favor? And then we have minutes from 11.1, the Emergency Advisory Committee meeting minutes of September 25th, 2019. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to receive that for information as well. Councillor Simpson, all in favor? Okay. Okay. And the motion to go into closed session. Councillor Pauls, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, Nikki, for attending.